Welcome, Pewter Report readers and listeners, to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius. I am John Ledyard. Along with me today is the one and only Matt Matera, back on the show in the midst of his vacation to take your questions and give you answers, Bucs fans. But first, Matt, you're out there with saying hi to Marty Bird out in the Ozarks. Isn't that where you are?
Yeah, I'm over in the Midwest. I'm kind of in Chiefs territory right now. But you know what? The Chiefs are a bunch of losers. The Bucs are Super Bowl champs. I made sure to wear some of the Bucs gear that I have. I wore a Super Bowl shirt when I was out here, so the people know. The people know who the Super Bowl champs are. But yeah, it's pretty awesome over here. I've never been to the Ozarks before. I was literally in the lake like an hour ago.
Really?
So I had to come out and get ready for the show.
But got all cleaned up, got a haircut going on.
Yeah, well, I'm going to a wedding next week in California, so I had to make sure the hair is good for that too.
A traveling man still taking time out of his vacation to come.
Got to.
Bucs.
I mean, it's the Pewter Report podcast. Come on,
that's true.
Best Bucs podcast out there. Let's go.
Yeah. No, I agree with you completely. And speaking of the best, we don't drink anything but the best on this show, and that includes our friends over at Celsius, man. I'm telling you, this tropical vibe. Oh, you got the wild berry?
I don't care where I am. I have to have some Celsius.
Oh, my gosh. I love the wild berry, but I haven't had any for a while. That's actually probably number one. Tropical vibe is in my top five, though. I don't know if you got a chance to get any tropical vibe before you left, Matt, but I mean, this is the sparkling starfruit pineapple edition, and let me tell you, it absolutely smacks. I mean, this stuff is so good, and it accelerates metabolism, burns body fat, no sugar, great taste, gives you that great boost without the drop off that you get from other energy drinks. It is a game changer, man. Celsius is terrific stuff. Here's what I love. They diversify a little bit too. They've got these fast protein bars, 20 grams of protein in these things. This is the this is the white chocolate cookies and cream. This is the salted caramel peanut crunch. I love them both. I just had a salted caramel peanut crunch today. Actually, that was my lunch. They're really, really good stuff. I mean, you're talking about only 2 grams of sugar in these things to 20 grams of protein. One of the things I've learned recently is my wife has tried to she's trying to reinvent her diet to find like better ways for her, stomach and everything like that to eat. And one of the things that's been emphasized is eat more protein, but then you also don't want to increase sugar. And sometimes it can be hard to find those independent of each other. These bars are a great option to be able to do that. Fast brands living an active lifestyle at the core of who they are, and their goal is to support a better you every day. So make sure you check those out. Check those bars out. There's a link in the podcast description that you can check out. You can go and you can actually get yourself a variety pack of these. And if you're looking for Celsius, go over to those banner ads at pewterreport.com. Click on one of those, get yourself some Celsius, or go over to Celsius.com, find your store locator, figure out where you can pick them up around you. This is going to be a fun show, Matt, because the shows where we don't have a real set agenda, yeah, those are some of our best shows, I think, probably. we can
go off the cuff. We can come up with
exactly.
It doesn't matter. We can kind of, it's on the fans.
Right.
It's up to the millions and millions of Pewter Report fans that are watching this show, or maybe watching at a later time because it's on YouTube. You can watch it whenever you want. But you guys dictate the show. We can go whatever way we want.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you have questions for us, let them fly in the chat. We do have some topics that we want to touch on today. Before we get to Matt's incredibly probing question, which we need to address on this show. Before we get to that later in the show, I wanted to identify Ryan Ramczyk just got extended by the Saints. The rare bit of, I guess we're still in June, the end of June or early July range NFL news. Ryan Ramczyk did get that extension that he's been looking for, and so they signed, I think, $19 million a year. Bodes well for the future of Tristan Wirfs. Not that he needed any help, but the right tackle market just got reset by Ryan Ramczyk, who is a very good tackle, one of the best right tackles in the league. Prompted me to go back down the road of an article I wrote just a few. Article was who's the best offensive line in the NFC South, and you can quickly rule out the Panthers and the Falcons, but the Bucs and the Saints. I mean, you're probably talking about 2 of the top 5 groups in the league when you get to those spots, and 3 of the best 4 tackles with another improving one in Donovan Smith that exists in the NFL. Probably 2 of the better tackle tandems in the NFL there. So it becomes tough to compare those 2 offensive lines. I did give the edge to the Bucs when I did it, so I'm sure Bucs fans will. Maybe they'll keep me around with it a little bit longer, but yeah, I think that's something that we gotta kind of be thinking about this season, it's going to be kind of one of the matchups within the matchup when those teams play, and even just throughout the year in the NFC South. We've talked about the wide receiver battles for years. With Julio gone, the conversation, even though the receivers are still good, it might shift now to more of the offensive line comparison.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think with the offensive line too, because what do we always talk about with the offensive line in general is that, it's crazy what Tristan Wirfs did, that he just came onto the scene, was amazing. But a lot of times it takes more than a year for an offensive line to gel and really come into its own. So I think when you look at it that way, the Saints have the advantage in that because they've been together for longer. They've had more sustained success of really taking it to their opponent. Now, with that said, it's really going to flip now because the Saints also had the luxury of Drew Brees was the guy getting the ball out quick. That's obviously a huge success there, and it led to helping the running game as well with Alvin Kamara.
Yeah,
Bucs just had one season with Tom Brady. We all know how great that was. They're going to have Brady next season and the year after that. Duh, we all know that. But now the Saints are entering a whole new era where there's no more Drew Brees. It looks like it's going to be Jameis or possibly Taysom Hill this year. So now they're the ones kind of behind the 8 ball. So I think if you look at like an overall 2-3 year period, I think I would lean towards the Saints by a little bit. But if we're talking about just the 2020 season, then I would agree with you that it's the Bucs. The wide receiver group, not even a question. We don't even have to talk another second about it.
No,
that offensive line. Yeah, I think it's going to be a really good matchup. That it's something that we should all look into. And you know what? Bucs got a pretty damn good defensive line. So
they do. So do the Saints, and that should be another fun matchup. And we can talk even head to head about that one. But I think the offensive line, Long Lost Glazer says we have the better left guard, and that's it. I mean, to me, there's no way. I mean, they have the best 2 guards. The Bucs do, in my opinion. I mean, I know under Speed, I think he just got voted to the Pro Bowl or whatever. He's a former first rounder. That pedigree is just going to stick with you, but. I don't know that there's many O-line experts out there that would tell you he's better than Kappa. I think he's Kappa's the better player. I think Marquette's clearly the best guard out of the team. Cesar Ruiz, there's still a bright future for him. Last year as a rookie, though, definitely some ups and downs. Didn't start the whole way. Struggled for sure. I think he's still very young and he can still get a lot better, and he will. Just hasn't happened yet. So I'd give the edge to the Bucs at both guard spots, and I'd give the edge at center. I think Eric McCoy's a good player for sure. And I loved him coming out. I think it was a great pick by the Saints in the second round. But I just think Ryan Jensen's on a level right now where he might be the best center in the league. And at right tackle, Ramczyk is a good player. And if you want to give the longevity nod to him and say Wirfs needs to do it for another year, go ahead, sure. But to me, Wirfs is definitely, Ramczyk is very good. And that's really all you need to tackle. Wirfs could be special. And that's the difference I think that I see there. So if you want to give it to Ramczyk based on longevity so far, go ahead, because he's done it for a couple of years. But Wirfs' season last year, to me, was on the level of anything Ramczyk's ever done or beyond that. So and again, I think you have to look at the system, right? Brees is getting that ball out, boom, like that. You know what I mean? All the time. Yeah. Brady is too, but it's a downfield passing attack. So you're talking about probably the fastest time to throw of any quarterback in the league in Brees. Brady's still up there in terms of time to throw, but you're also talking about deep pass drops. And so to not give up pressure on those all the time, where defenders really have a chance to tee off and get home, I think it's something that is underrated in this comparison. The Bucs offensive line is in a scheme that isn't necessarily the easiest for them, although Tom Brady's presence definitely does make some things easier. So it's a fun comparison to think about. Obviously, Teron Armstead is the big advantage for the Saints over Donovan Smith. Not because Smith is that bad, but because Armstead just is that good. I mean, you're talking about one of the best left tackles in the league. And Ramey brings it up here that I called it a while ago, but we'll see what happens unless something happened in the last 10 minutes with Teron Armstead that I didn't see. But, we'll see what happens with Teron Armstead. I did say, Ryan Ramczyk's going to get this extension eventually. And in my opinion, Teron Armstead's in a contract year. I just don't know how they were going to be able to sign him long-term. They still a player that they have to sign long-term. And so I think somebody would have to get traded for this to happen with Armstead. It's a lot of money to tie up in 2 tackles, especially when you're looking for the game's most important position, and a couple other pieces as well. I just don't know how Armstead fits in the long-term plans. He's also had some injuries in his past. They re-signed James Hurst as an insurance policy. I think if the Saints start the season a little bit rough, Armstead could be a trade deadline piece to move maybe. I mean, if you're smart, if you're the Saints, you try to use some assets. Unless you can be a contender, you try to get rid of some assets and get something in return while you can. I think that's going to be one of the keys for them.
Everyone knows offensive line is the most, well, other than quarterback, offensive line is the most important unit in the league. I mean, I'm a trenches guy. I think you're a trenches guy as well. I mean, a position like that, it's crazy. I don't know. When you have such a good player, it's crazy to let a player go like that. But yeah, I mean, the financials obviously do play into it, and
right.
Yeah, it's really kind of a situation where the tables are turned this year because the Saints, everything you just said about the Bucs, that it's more downfield and they have to hold their blocks for longer. I think we're going to see more of that for the Saints this year. And the question is, can they pass the test?
Right.
I don't know. That's something we can't really answer until we hit the field.
It is kind of a combination of things. I think the Saints O-line is elite. I also think the scheme has been, and the quarterback, because the fact that it's such a short, quick passing attack, has been one of the probably one of the simpler ones. Not simpler ones, but I think it's helped a lot. Let's put it that way. And I definitely wonder if they go to a quarterback like Jameis with a penchant for holding onto the ball and being a little more unpredictable in the pocket, how that's going to affect the way people perceive them. Not necessarily how good they are. They're probably going to be the same level of good. It might affect the perception.
It would be the perfect comparison, though. Like, okay, who literally was better? You had the same quarterback, so
that's true. Right
up until last season, when it was Breeze and Brady.
That's a good point. If Jameis takes a great offensive line that's been recognized as a top 3 offensive line in the league for years now, and they all of a sudden are giving up mid-league sacks or high number of sacks for the league compared to the average. We're going to learn a lot about how that Bucs offensive line. Maybe DeMar Dotson should have gotten more respect.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. It's good questions here. Razor Squid wants to know, will Mike Evans have one of the best, if not the best season of his career now that Brady has been in the offense for a bit? It's a good question. I don't think there's enough balls to go around for him to bypass, what was that, 2018 season? I think it was his 2018 season that was pretty special in terms of production. That was a great season. That would be my take on the whole. I think he'll have a good year. I think he'll hit 1,000 again if he can stay healthy, but maybe not.
Yeah, I agree. I think he'll have a great season. This kind of goes back to what we were talking about last week. There's too many talented players, and Godwin's a little bit more of the consistent guy. That doesn't necessarily mean that Godwin's going to have the best year and the best numbers. I think Mike's numbers in the red zone will be number of touchdowns will be, if not the same, even a little bit more than this year due to their chemistry and everything like that. Yep. But as far as yards and everything, again, you add in a healthy O.J. Howard and you add in a new running back in the passing game with Giovanni Bernard, it's going to have to take away from someone. It's still going to lead to wins and success for the Bucs, but individual accolades. Mike will get 1,000. We'll all be happy, and we'll all be hopefully enjoying another Super Bowl.
There's this to consider too. Last year was not Mike Evans' best on tape. I think it was a very good year. Most receivers would take it and run with it. For Evans, the standard is probably a little bit higher than last year, which is fine.
A great point. Right.
But I think
if another up and coming receiver had that season Mike Evans had, all those touchdowns, getting over 1,000 yards, playing injured, they'd be like, oh wow, he's the next big thing. Mike Evans is like, his season was good, but not great. And it shows the type of level of player he is and the respect that he gets around the league, or should be getting.
Right. I think the one thing with Evans that we overlooked last year was the most efficient season of his career by far. I mean, catch rate was the best it's ever been for him last year. He finished on more of his targets than ever before, despite having a decent amount of drops. That shows me that he's playing with the most accurate quarterback he's ever played with, and a quarterback that's not going to necessarily force him the ball when he's covered all the time. That was a huge issue with Jameis. Granted, for all of his career, Jameis didn't have all the weapons that Brady has now, but he still had other weapons, and there was no excuse. Mike Evans got force-fed the ball a lot of the time, and that resulted in, if you look at the interception numbers when Evans was targeted over the course of his career, if you look at catch rate over the course of his career compared to other top wide receivers, you're going to see concerning numbers on the part of targets to Mike Evans. But I would argue a lot of that wasn't his fault, and a lot of that was the fact that Jameis the ball to Mike Evans even when he was double covered and even when there was a better option. And I don't think Brady's going to do that. So in terms of efficiency, especially if Evans can cut back down on the drops that have plagued him a little bit, yes, I think you're going to see the best season of his career in terms of efficiency. In terms of raw production, I don't know if that'll be the case. But Evans is still young, and he will bounce back, I think, from last year. Like I said, it was a fine year. I just don't think it was as good as he can play. So I think he'll have a better year than he did in 2020. So that should help clear that up. Good one here. MN7 Miami says, who do you think has the most receptions on our team this year? You go first.
I think it's got to be Chris Godwin. I think because he plays in the slot, because he'll go over the middle and then also do his thing on the outside. I just think he's arguably the most versatile receiver that the Bucs have outside of Antonio Brown. I know Godwin got hurt a little bit last season, but overall he's a durable guy and he's younger than Brown and Evans and everyone else. So I think he's going to be able to play the most. Mm-hmm. And because of that, he's going to be the third down guy. He's going to be looked at in those big situations. I mean, granted, this wasn't a passing play, but in the NFC Championship game, when the Bucs needed to get that first down on that third down play to ice the game in Lambeau, no pun intended, who they give the ball to? It was Chris Godwin on a run play. Mm-hmm. So I think he's going to be one of the more targeted guys on this team because of his ability to do a little bit of everything more than the other receivers. I think we kind of know what we're going to see with some other guys, and therefore when you need, not every play is going to be down the field, and that's what Mike does, and that's what Scotty Miller does. So I think those intermediate to short throws are really going to be headed towards Chris Godwin's way. I mean, you even look at the Super Bowl, he didn't have too many receptions, but that first play of the game, who was Brady looking for? It's Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin's a big yard after the catch guy. So if we're talking about like a 3rd and 7, and for whatever reason Godwin runs a 5-yard route, Brady's going to be more inclined to throw it to Godwin and trust him to get those extra yards after the catch to complete the first down versus throwing it to Mike and hoping that Mike can kind of muscle his way through. So I think your leader in the clubhouse is Chris Godwin, and then Antonio Brown is right behind that. I'm curious to see, because Brown played half the season and he got hurt in the postseason. I'm not necessarily saying he's going to be like an injury-prone guy, but he's definitely older in age. And yeah, he doesn't have a lot of wear on the tire, but when you have a hamstring injury and we're talking about soft tissue, like I feel like that's something that tends to occur more often as you get older. So I'm going to lean towards Godwin with this one.
Oh yeah, for sure. Godwin, to me, I think he would have led the team. Well, maybe he did lead the team last year. I can't even remember who had the most catches, but no, he was, to me, like, it's not even close. I think he's a 100-catch guy last year if he doesn't get hurt pretty easily. So I think, yeah, he's definitely going to lead the team in receptions. He's the volume guy. Splash plays, touchdowns, I don't know. We'll have to see. That one's a little bit more debatable to me, but I'm definitely with you on Godwin. Hey, this is kind of the nitty-gritty stuff, and another place that we talk about this nitty-gritty stuff and get into some of the specifics of these predictions and catches and numbers and things like that is Locker Room. It's a social audio app that is changing the way we talk sports. It's the only place for live audio conversations about the takes, rumors, news, and teams you care about. React to sports news as it happens, gather all your friends and watch parties for the biggest games, rep your favorite teams, and find your community. Better sports talk is just a tap away. Download on the Apple App Store and join the conversation with Locker Room. If you download Locker Room, make sure you follow Pewter Report. You'll get invited when we go live. Taking a little bit of a break, a little bit of a vacation run here as we enter the month of July, but we'll be back on that thing. And in season, we had some great rooms going there. Training camp, we're going to have lots to talk about and discuss. So it's going to be a lot of fun on Locker Room here coming up very soon. Good questions about the wide receiver room, because I think there is a lot to discuss there. And obviously, I think that there's certainly fair points to be made on behalf of all these wide receivers. Here's a good one that you're going to have a better insight into than me. Who wins the match, Brady or Rodgers? You know more about their golf partners than I do, because you're more of a golf guy than I am.
Yeah, I'm a pretty big golf fan. It's going to be awesome to watch. It's Phil Mickelson and Tom Brady teaming up again against Bryson DeChambeau and Aaron Rodgers. Mm-hmm. As far as the PGA golfers, Phil's getting up there in age. He did just win the PGA Championship, which was a big deal because the oldest guy to ever do it. Great short game. Anything like 100 yards in, he's able to do crazy things with the ball to get close to the hole. Bryson DeChambeau, Brooks Koepka hates him. He's a Florida State guy. Brooks Koepka is, so Mark Cook will love him. Anyway, he bombs the ball off the tee. So, I mean, I would give the advantage, if we're talking about the pro golfers, as much as I love Phil and he's the man, the advantage has got to go to Bryson a little bit. I've never seen Aaron Rodgers play golf, so I can't tell you like how good or bad.
Last year Brady was pretty rough, right?
Well, I
don't know. I barely watched it.
I think when the Bucs and Packers played against each other in the regular season, someone brought up that they went golfing together, and Brady said that Rodgers beat him, which makes me think that he's at least okay. But Brady is such a maniac and like wants to, in a good way, where, you know, if someone beats him one time, he wants to destroy them the next time. And let's not forget, Phil Mickelson is also a gambling man. He, you know, he likes to have little stakes on the line, stuff like that. So I'm going to pick Brady and Phil Mickelson because they want to avenge the loss that they had last year. It's different opponents, but still they want revenge. And, you know, they're both coming off championship victories. I don't think that should be overlooked. So, and golf is a crazy game too, where it's, you know, the favorite doesn't always beat the underdog. I think they're playing somewhere in Montana or Idaho or something like that. So I don't really know what the course layout is. If it's not as long, that obviously helps someone like Phil. But yeah, it'll be a lot of fun to watch. It's coming up soon.
Yeah, that's a good assessment there, man. We're breaking down golf on the show. I love it. No, that's interesting.
I like a golf shirt. I'm ready.
I'd like hearing more about that, like that kind of stuff, like who's good, you know, driving the ball, who's good in the short. Because I don't watch enough golf, but I will watch the match. I'm excited for that. Yeah. Hopefully, it's not downpouring like it was last time. Last year's match that probably sullied the performance too a little bit. But Adolfo says the Saints secondary was what made them elite. Not sure they still have that. I'd pump the brakes on that a little bit. I mean, they still have Marshawn Lattimore. They got Marcus Williams back. And again, he's another one we mentioned. We mentioned Lattimore needing a contract. Williams is another one. I mean, you tagged him. So what's the deal going to be there? You know, just to have him this year? Is that going to try and have as good a defense as you can, as good an O-line as you can? You know, maybe that's the strategy even with Armstead. But we'll see how the season starts. But Williams is another one you're playing on the tag. But you got your free safety back. You still have Malcolm Jenkins there. He played well at points last year for sure. You wonder maybe age is catching up with him. You still have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson growing in the slot as a good slot defender. So you have 4 of your 5 top guys back from last year. So, I mean, it's not like this group, you know, is falling apart. And they've got PJ Williams in the mix still. He's a contributor for them. Drafted Paulson Adebo in the 3rd round. Still have Patrick Robinson hanging around. I think they definitely have a hole at that outside corner spot. But Richard Sherman's still out there, man, and I wouldn't rule it out. You know, find a way, especially if you move one of those guys like Armstead. You find a way to get those kind of things done with those older players if they want to win a championship. So we'll see what happens. There's still some good players available, and the Saints are the type of team that a lot of those players will be looking at if they can make it work in terms of the cap. So, yeah, I think that that secondary is still going to be very good. The Saints are still going to be very good. I know people don't want to hear that, but they're still going to be a good team this year. It's going to be a tough game. For
like the Bucs, they did win the division last year. It's not like, you know, they're going to get rolled over.
Right. Although we haven't even talked about this, but how interesting was Jeff Darlington's report that Brady almost signed in New Orleans? Like that was a legit thing. There were a lot of teams that talked about Brady, and you know the Chargers were clearly interested. We know they were in. The 49ers kind of wanted to stick with Garoppolo, but there was interest there. There's been this mystery team, and we should talk about that too. And people in the chat can sound off as to who they believe that mystery team was. But the Saints thing was totally crazy to me because if the Saints had said yes to Brady, they would have been moving on from Breeze before Breeze was done in favor of Tom Brady. And that would have worked its way into that GOAT discussion with those guys. Not that there is one based off rings, but a lot of Saints fans would say that Breeze is as talented a quarterback as Brady, even if he hasn't as much postseason.
And then does Breeze go to the Bucs? Because
then where does Breeze go? Right.
Yeah, because Brady signed on St. Patty's Day, or that's when like the announcement was made that he was coming to the Bucs. So I don't recall at the moment, like if Rivers had already signed with the Colts, some of the other veteran quarterbacks where they ended up. But we're looking at a situation where like, yeah, it could have been Breeze going to the Bucs. The Bucs could have just decided they were going to trade up and draft for a quarterback or at least pick a quarterback last season. So that means Kyle Trask doesn't go in the 2nd round this year. There's a lot of different things that could have happened. It's could have went down the butterfly effect.
Right. And Breeze would have been such a bad fit. But maybe at the time they didn't know that or wouldn't have accepted that if he was still the best quarterback.
And then there's no
there.
Gronk. Gronk doesn't come to here, and probably not Leonard Fournette. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It is. That's an interesting, interesting point. It is a big ripple effect. Maybe Gronk goes to the Saints.
Yeah.
possibility that the Saints
If
could have got a stronger tight
Fournette
end.
probably goes. He's an LSU guy.
That's right. He might have
Oh,
been
man.
interested there too. So yeah, things could have been a lot different.
Well, good
for
thing
sure.
that didn't happen.
Antonio Brown, who knows? I mean, the Saints needed another receiver. So anyway, lots of layers to it. But yeah, I was fascinated by that. Darlington is, remember, the first guy that said Brady's leaving New England. He was the guy that first reported that, and he was right. He's been on the inside track. Now, I don't think the Saints were the team Brady was referring to on the Shop at all. If people watch the Shop uninterrupted, they've probably read my story over at Pewter Report. I kind of compiled some perspectives around the league, people who are dialed in, who they've been talking to. To me, there's no way it was the Saints. I don't even consider the Saints. I know some people said that and brought up the Saints the possibility. No way. There's no way Breeze. If you missed the quote, Brady basically said he couldn't believe a team wasn't in on him at the end, and he couldn't believe they were sticking with, in his words, that MFer. That was what he said on the show. Obviously, more of an unfiltered show, but he said that, and there's just no way that he'd refer to Breeze that way. Even if you think it's a little bit of a joke, like, which it was, they're laughing about, but there's no way he'd think that, or, he's recalling what he thought at the time. You wouldn't say it about Breeze. And I know people brought up the 49ers. No way it would be the 49ers either. He and Jimmy Garoppolo are friends, and they've always had each other's back. And, and Jimmy Garoppolo had just played in the Super Bowl at that point. Like, Brady's not unrealistic. He gets it. Even if he thinks he's better than Jimmy, and he knows that he's better than Jimmy, he gets that a team's not going to want to jump ship on the guy that just brought him to the Super Bowl, as much as you can argue how much Jimmy had to do with that. But that's not a surprising situation. So to me, I ruled those two teams out quickly. I don't know if you had similar thoughts.
Yeah. It just seemed like, I never really thought San Fran, and everything you said, there's no way he would disrespect Breeze like that. I mean, everyone saw the video of them like shaking hands and hugging after the game, after the divisional round. So there's no way he would do that.
Would be hilarious if it was Breeze.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any way. He was like, this guy can't even throw 10 yards. Like, what if he'd said that on the Shop? We're talking.
A lot of people were saying the Raiders and the Bears. I mean, that makes sense, especially the Bears.
Those were possibilities in my mind. But Mitch Trubisky certainly fits the description of Brady's thought process there. Yeah. Derek Carr might too, although Carr ended up playing well. But to me, I think the argument I've heard that makes the most sense is Tennessee. I got to ask Ben Albright, who first reported, I think, that it was Tennessee and that Ryan Tannehill, the quarterback he was talking about. And that makes sense on a lot of levels. And Rich Eisen did a good job on his show of talking about it recently as well, that Brady, if you remember when they were I forget what game it was now, Brady and Edelman FaceTime. We're FaceTiming John Robinson. Remember, and the internet kind of blew up. They're like, oh, you're FaceTiming John Robinson or Vrabel, one of those two, or maybe both of them.
I think it was Vrabel, because Vrabel's a Patriots guy too. So.
Right. So was John Robinson. So but they have ties to both those guys in the past, the Titans GM and coach. So there was that, and then I think that it made sense. There was some interest, but then the Titans clearly would have pulled out because they re-signed Tannehill, I think 5 days before the Brady announcement.
Yeah, pretty early on.
So so they would have told him early which it sounds like this team, they weren't in there at the end. He said they weren't in on him at the end. No, they just decided to stick with the guy. Now, some people say, well, Tannehill just beat him in his last game before he said that. Well, Tannehill threw for 72 yards in that game. He was like 8 of 15 passing. So that actually might have added to Brady's argument. Like, imagine how bad you would have beat us if you had somebody like me at quarterback rather than now. Tannehill went on and he's done a great job, and he obviously played better outside of that game. But I don't think that game would have kept Brady from saying that. And there's been no record of him having this great relationship with Tannehill where he wouldn't have thought that or felt free to say that on the Shop. So I think it was Tennessee. I don't think he ever would have gone to the Bears to try to rule them out. And I don't really think the Raiders thing was that close either, which is why I ruled them out. And then the Titans thing wasn't close either, but there was definitely like, oh, I know Vrabel and I know John Robinson. Let's see what's going on here. This team was in the AFC Championship. Let's see what's going on here. And so I definitely think there was a feeling out that happened, and the Titans just kind of like, we're going to ride with Tannehill, and that pissed him off. So that's my thought on the whole thing. People are thinking it was San Fran. People will probably always think it's from San Fran. Yeah, the reason it's not San Fran, Matthew Sands, who's saying it's San Fran. The reason it's not San Fran, there's a lot of reasons. I know for sure it's not San Fran because I've heard that now coming down since that happened. But my initial thought was San Fran. That's where Brady went on to say on the Shop, like, I would not have picked this team, but I still couldn't believe that they weren't even really interested. But Brady might have picked San Fran. I mean, that was definitely, like you said, he's from that area. Like Joe Montana was his hero growing up. That might have been a team that he actually would have picked had they been interested. Darlington still says Tampa Bay was at the top of his list the whole time because they were straight up and they were straightforward with him that they wanted him. But I think if San Fran had been more invested or more vocal, it would have probably been a tougher, longer decision for Brady. I don't know who he would have chosen. Let's put it that way. So that's why it was definitely not the 49ers. Plus, yeah, I've heard it was not the 49ers. Raiders or Bears, I'd consider them, but I feel strongly Albright's really dialed in. I think Rich Eisen's on the money that it was the Titans. And Coward said it wasn't the Titans. So that enforces my opinion that it was probably the Titans.
All right.
Ren thinks it was the Vipers. Good thought, Ren. Could have been the Vipers. You have another question to pose for us before we get off this show today. And that is a Tom Brady, LeBron James comparison question, which I'm sure everyone in the chat has been preparing themselves for on this show at some point.
Yeah. So obviously LeBron and Tom Brady are two of the biggest stars in their respective sport, the biggest. I don't think it's even really a question. And I'm just having a hypothetical debate I brought it up to numerous people just for the fun of it. I mean, why not? And pretty much what it is so Brady right now is 43. He'll be 44 in August. LeBron right now is 36. Who will play to a later age in their career? Will it be Brady or LeBron? Because Brady right now, as I said, he'll be 44. He's got this season and next season. So like realistically, he could probably play till he's 46. That means LeBron would have to play another 10 years in the NBA. But LeBron, again, the NBA is like not as physical of a sport as the NFL and everything like that. LeBron wants to play so his son can get into the NBA and they're playing in the league at the same time. So that'd be pretty cool. And
so how good is Bronny Jr.? That's what this, if that is really what he wants, I don't know if he's actually ever said that or if it's just rumored, but he's 16 right now, Bronny Jr. So how good is he? Is he good enough to play 1 year in college and go to the NBA? I don't know how how good he is.
He's pretty legit. I mean, he plays on all.
If anybody knows in the chat, by the way, let us know if we're talking about like a for sure 1 year and done type of guy, like, Zion. I know we're not talking about Zion, but
right.
Something like that.
I'm under the assumption that he's good enough to get to the NBA. But then there's also the other side of it. I mean, LeBron is a physical specimen. This is the first year that he's actually like kind of gotten hurt. But
he's 36. That's a long time. 10 more years would be crazy.
Like, how obsessive is he to get to 6 NBA championships and tie Jordan or possibly surpass Jordan with the 7th? I just think it's crazy. The more I think of it, I think the answer is Brady.
Oh yeah.
But I just think it's insane that Brady plays football, like the more physical sport out of the two, and he's going to play longer. So,
and he's playing. I mean, basketball. Basketball is super physical, but you're right. Like, even if you get hit once in a football, I mean, Brady got clobbered a few times last year. Like, so it is different still.
I
even though
it was a fun little hypothetical.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I definitely don't think LeBron will play that long, nor will he need to, obviously, for to play with Bronny Jr. But my question would be more, does LeBron play till he's 40? Because with Brady, that was at one point a question. And then as soon as he passed that and was still going to Super Bowls, everybody was like, oh, okay, like 45? And so I wonder if Bron will play that long and whether Bronny Jr., nobody in the chat seems to know, I'd say. But Gabe says he's all right.
To tie Jordan. But I don't think it's any guarantee that he's going to win another championship like within the next year or two.
Who's that?
LeBron.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree.
I just think I think LeBron could potentially not hitch his wagon, but like start up another super team with another team.
Wow.
I always said, okay, I'll make it quick because we're talking. We want to talk about the Bucs. I always thought in the Jordan versus LeBron debate, I tend to lean towards Jordan, but I always said for LeBron, his legacy shouldn't be like, oh, hey, like I tied Jordan. I think his legacy, because everyone will always be like, Jordan did it with one team. Like, you had to go start a new team. That's always going to be the argument against LeBron. If I'm LeBron or a fan of LeBron, my argument would be, hey, he could literally go anywhere and win a championship. He finally went with Cleveland. He went to Miami. He did it. He went to Los Angeles. He did it. He'll go somewhere else and do it. I think there's something about like going to all these different teams and winning everywhere he went that makes the case for an argument. And that's my 2 cents on the issue.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, you're right about that. I think part of it also is the legacy thing. I feel like legacy-wise, it would have been easier for LeBron. Like if LeBron had just goated with one team, maybe there would be like this big swell for people for him. No, maybe not though. Maybe now every fan base likes him. I don't know. Cleveland certainly does again after he went back there. So interesting for sure. Bucs Time still thinks that we are comparing Tom Brady and LeBron as GOATs. We are not. That if you're listening and don't have us on mute, that should have been clear. If you do have us on mute though, totally understandable, but you're going to miss a great question to finish off the show at the end. And you're going to miss this unbelievable moment on the show where I get to talk about our good friends over at Manscaped and get to enjoy every second of it. Because summer's coming, Matt. Are you ready to unveil your beach bod? You're doing it right now over at the Ozarks. You're in luck. Our friends at Manscaped just launched their 4th generation performance package, which includes the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right. The 4.0. Complement your summer bod with a trim from the leaders in male grooming. The sun is shining and calling your name, fellas. Join the 2 million men, 2 million and counting men worldwide, including your boys here, who trust Manscaped. And get ready for hot guy summer. Wow, I can't believe I just read that. By going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the promo code PEWTER, PEWTER at manscaped.com. Make sure you check that out. It's time to bundle up with the Performance Package 4.0. Inside this package, you'll get the Lawnmower Trimmer 4.0. I mean, it's comfortable, no snags, no nicks, nothing like that. They got the light on for you to be able to see everything what you're doing down function. I mean, that's just really practical. Love that about it. It's also got the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, comfortable, easy to use. And the 4.0 comes with a lock for the on-off switch, so it's not buzzing in your backpack, and then you get to use it, and the battery's dead. Hate that. So they've thought of that. They've thought of everything. The Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant, Crop Reviver Toner, unbelievably comfortable performance boxer briefs, and an unbelievable travel bag that holds it all together for you. I mean, the packages with Manscaped are unbelievable to make your package look the best that it ever has. So make sure you check out Manscaped. Those 2 free gifts, the boxers and the travel bag, I'm telling you, they put it over the top. Bring your comfort and your boxers to another level with those Manscaped boxers. We love them. We talk about them all the time on the show. So get 20% off plus free shipping with that promo code PEWTER, PEWTER at manscaped.com. 20% off plus free shipping. Make sure you check that out over at manscaped.com. Really good stuff. All right, Matt, we got to figure out this show. We got to close this show out with a little chat about the Bucs overall. Where is the depth lacking? Somebody asked a good question here earlier in the show, trying to find the question to put it up on the screen. But it was a good question in general because it said, where is the depth kind of lacking on this roster? If we're going to assess the roster as a whole, is there any reason for concern? Is there any spots where you can't afford to lose a player? Obviously, you highlight Brady off the bat. The other one offensively that I'd go to probably is offensive tackle. I mean, I don't know. We've never really seen Josh Wells for an extended period of time, and I'd be nervous about it if it happened. I don't think offensive tackle is a position where you can afford to lose a player. Everywhere else on the offensive line, I think you could afford to, and you could still be a Super Bowl contender. Offensive tackle could hurt this team a little bit. That's the only position on offense other than quarterback.
I agree with that. I was thinking defensively, if something were to happen at linebacker, like if Kevin Minter got injured like on a special teams play and then something happened to Levante or Devin, and you're relying on 2 rookie linebackers, I think that's a little bit of a gamble. But again, that's kind of like a more specific hypothetical. I also real quick, news came out today that Levante David's father unfortunately passed away. So just want to send our thoughts and prayers to Levante and his family with that. But he's probably one of those players. I wouldn't even say the position of linebacker. I would just say Levante because of what he does communication wise and role wise. They would have to change some things they do because I don't think anybody else in that defense at linebacker could do kind of what he does. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, he's been doing it for years too. I just think I don't know. That was the first thing that popped into my head.
I would say players on defense more than position. Like you could probably replace Vita and be okay like they did last year.
So
but you can't replace Vita's impact. Same with Levante. You could probably be okay.
So the argument for the defensive line, I mean, they just did that last year because Vita missed most of the season until he came back for the playoffs, and they were able to right the ship pretty well.
Right.
So
to me, the most valuable player on defense is Carlton Davis. If they lost Carlton Davis, I would suddenly be scared for this team. Or if Carlton Davis's play fell off, because Carlton Davis in 2020 was a lot better than Carlton Davis in 2019. And maybe that's his trajectory of growth, or maybe it was an outlier season. I tend to believe it's his trajectory of growth. I think he showed some really, really good things.
Yeah, I think he's
up. If he regressed or didn't play as well this season, that's a big blow to the secondary, because what they ask him to do is tough. And if he can't do that, all of a sudden now everybody gets exposed. Now Sean Murphy-Bunting's got to play a number one guy, or Jamel Dean or Ross Cockrell. So I'd be a lot more nervous about the team if Davis. So it's like individuals on defense, I think, where like offense, I don't know if left or right tackle, even though Wirfs is better, I think it'd be hard to replace either of those guys where they're at right now.
Yeah, all great points. This team is just so good.
Yeah, it is. Edge defender would be another one, but again, I'd like to see Joe Tryon. Maybe he balls out, and maybe I don't feel quite as
right.
But now,
I'd be gamble. It's always a gamble with the rookie, but like I'd be willing to bet more for Joe Tryon than I would with the linebackers that I was just talking about.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Good points. Good questions. Great questions. And again, for Gary wants to know if Carlton will be better this year. I think he'll be a little bit better this year. Yeah. Or at least stabilize at last year's performance, which I think was pretty good outside of the Tyreek Hill day. So yeah, I would still feel really good about him. So okay. So we covered a lot of ground on this show and got some really good questions and had a ton of fun, which is really all you want in the month of June. And we're moving into the month of July. Tomorrow, July 1st, we are going to have a guest from Canada, Paul Atwall, who is Hoss Y Juke on Twitter. Follow him if you don't know him. He is terrific. He is going to be coming on the show tomorrow. He's going to be breaking down his assessment film-wise on a lot of the things that changed for the Bucs after the bye week. What improved? We know that they got better, but specifically what happened, even beyond just, they used more play action, or, they did this or that more. We're going to look actually at the details and the numbers of some of that stuff. Going to be a great show tomorrow. Paul is somebody that I think is going to be a rising star in this business that everybody's going to want to make sure they follow on social media and make sure they check out tomorrow's pod to hear his perspective and be able to ask him some questions. So make sure you jump into that show tomorrow. That's 4 p.m. Eastern. We'll be going live at that point in time. And then next week, we're going to be off Monday on the podcast, obviously, to celebrate the 4th of July. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we'll be rolling here on the Pewter Report podcast with more good content. And right now, we've got some fun guests lined up for them. We'll try to lock those in for you over the weekend. So should be a fun time, but don't miss tomorrow, Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern, for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.